what you want is not what you need. So this is a statement that you're going to be going through quite a few times right? Before you finish this program. And I deliberately started this presentation with that slide with a fierce animal to draw your attention and to impress you with how important this is for our lives. My observation is that like many human lives could have been so much better if we just get this straight. We can like differentiate between what we need uh, and what we want. Because my own assessment is that a lot of people have spent an inordinate amount of time and energy and financial resources in pursuing things that they do not really need, but they're being conditioned to want. And then they sometimes even pursue those at the expense of certain things that they actually need. And then by pursuing these confused notions of what you want, you're also paying a very high opportunity cost, because then you're not using your time and energy and resources to pursue more effective strategies for addressing your real needs. All right, so let us go back to the PowerPoint now and see if I can explain this to you with more clarity. So let me start with like why I say like what you need and what you want are very different. So I will start with a very simple example. This example will be food, right? We all need food. But when you need food, what you want for food is very different. We have like over 7 billion people living on this planet, and we have literally like, well, maybe not billions, but like maybe at least millions of items that people can think of as food. And what is food to you may be a totally objectionable, disgusting idea to another person, right? For people who do not eat pork, right? Pork is not food, right? Pork is, you know, an offensive idea, maybe. To make this easier for you to imagine, like just imagine when you hear people eating dogs, right? In much of the English-speaking world, right, that is sort of like a no-no. It is like something that is like not proper. This is something that is unacceptable, right? But then obviously there are other cultures in which, right, pork is not acceptable or beef is not acceptable, but like dog may be acceptable. And in some cultures, they will consider items that normally not regarded as food, like certain insects, worms. And well, some cultures see those as an important source of protein. So you understand that like what we want, right, is heavily conditioned, right, by social scripts that categorizes things into like food, non-food, right, good, bad, acceptable, unacceptable, sacred, profane, and we follow them, right? So when we experience a need, right, what we want, right, is heavily conditioned by social scripts, norms, social conventions, culture, and sometimes like within a particular community, you're also subject to group pressure. If someone in your group, right, did something or preferred something, and then the group is not cool with that idea, that person will be under tremendous pressure to not want that. When you come to look at like your, say, recent purchases and ask yourself, you know, how much of those were influenced by what your friends are doing, right? What people in your social circle is doing. It would include, the food, right? You just talked about food, but it would also include like fashion items, um, the personal digital device that you use. Like if you're hanging out with people, they all think that a certain product is cool and then like other products are not, you may be influenced by that. It might also you may also be influenced by your peers with regard to like to the vehicle you drive, and sometimes even like to the home that you purchase. So furniture, right, and other stuff. So we can easily think of like how translation from what we need to what we want, right, is always influenced by this social forces. Well, the other important aspect, right, would be what I call like commercial persuasion, right, which is done through like advertising and marketing. So if you go to like either you're shopping in the physical space, like physical retail space, like a shopping mall, or you're going online, when you're shopping, you know that there are people who are working very hard and they make big bucks, right? Out of influencing, shaping your purchase decisions. So these people are motivated to help you translate what you need into what you want, right? They want you to want their products. So, and if you're not careful with this, like then what you end up doing is that you'll be purchasing things that you do not really need, right? But you're being conditioned to want, right? And you spend your time, energy, and resources on those items, and then leaving relatively compromised capacity to address your other needs, right? So a lot of people, they say, for example, spend an inordinate amount of money because they need social approval, they need to look cool, uh, they they need to feel valued and accepted or respected by their friends, and to the extent that they're sacrificing their ability, say for example, to save for their retirement when they would need a secure, stable income, and some people were spending an inordinate amount of money servicing their credit card debts or other forms of debts, which directly threatens their personal, social, mental, financial well-being, right? So it is really important for us to be able to differentiate between our needs and our want, and and to respond accordingly, so that we will be in a more rational executive mode, and we will be pursuing strategies that are directly relevant to addressing the key needs in our lives. So that is like an important idea, and that is why we have to guard against, all these like explicit and like more hidden forces that are trying to shape our translation process from needs to wants, right? So coming back to this slide, and you see that like there is a third force, right, that I call political manipulation. And you're going, okay, like, like how do politics shape my needs and wants? Well, I would say big time. Let us talk about, sort of like the broader everyday real politics, and then I'll talk about like sort of more subtle politics, such as like gender politics. Okay, so if you're sold on the idea that like if you need safety, you need to be physically safe, right? And you need to be able to pursue your everyday activities without worrying about your properties being violated or your physical safety being threatened. Some people will be selling you the idea that, well, you know, if you want that, you should support like your government spending more money on law enforcement and building more prisons and maintain the death sentence. Well, those politicians, right, advocating for that, they're playing with your need for safety, but they will not encourage you to do your independent research and look at, okay, are there persuasive like social science evidence for all these like political measures, right? Uh, uh, Jurisdictions with death sentence safer to live in? You know, do they have like lower crime rates, right? If we put more money into building prisons and law enforcement, does it normally help to improve the social environment? Well, you can look into that, right, and make up your mind. But like some people obviously is motivated politically to make you believe, right, that this is what you want, right, and what you want is like more law enforcement, and you'll be like manipulated to feel that you actually need them, right? So that is like what happens. And I can give you another example that is like in gender politics. In societies where men are given like more privileges, more power, and all that, they're able to create a political discourse, right? A way of thinking about things that will systematically disadvantage women. And you will, one obvious example is like you have a double standard. Like say, for example, men would allow themselves to have like more sexual life chances. Like the more sexual partners you have as a man, the more valued you are, right? But you have the reverse valuation system for women, and women, if they're like equally active, they're seeking out sexual opportunities or sexual life chances as actively as men do, then they will be devalued, right? And so by using this, right, uh, double standard political discourse, man is practically, right, creating an unequal situation that would allow them more sexual life chances than women, right? And then they would also have like more political influence and leverage uh, in the negotiation of sexual relationships. So that is like another example of like how political manipulation can move into like affecting what you need and what you want. So if you're a male, then like if you experience certain needs, like sexual needs, for example, then there are like a lot of socially facilitated processes and strategies for you to go about. And you're also like conditioned to actually want particular types of particular uh, love objects, right? Women, the same thing. And then all these ideas, right, surrounding what is desirable, what you should do and should not do, is intricately tied to the reality of power. So I can go on this topic, but I think the key idea here, right, is for you to realize that there are three major forces for you to look at, right? So here we're coming back to this, right, which will conclude sort of the discussion here. So we have already got to the example of food before, right? You remember that, like I talked about like food, right, and what you want. And now I'm going, and I've given you the other example, but like we can actually go into the other example with a little bit more detail. Yeah, say we all need to feel good about ourselves, right? We all, and as affiliated or associated with this need is the need to feel being respected, valued, accepted by other people. But we go about doing different things, right? Some people would try to pursue, academic degrees or professional titles, or titles associated with prestigious or elite organizations, um, like championships, or being part of an elite league. Some of us would try to address that need by purchasing luxurious items, right? And we may think that by putting on designer item clothing, we may somehow get more respect, more uh, value by other people. And we somehow will become sort of more valuable as a human being. So that is what a lot of people, right, with vested interest would want you to think, and you will be translating, right, your need into such wants. And I hate to be using this third example, but unfortunately, it is very often true. Some people are attracted to a partner not only because you're attracted to that partner because you have intimacy needs, right? And then there are other psycho emotional needs that are associated um, with this relationship that you have with your partner. Some people actually got attracted to a partner because that partner is seen as socially desirable, and you're trying to address your esteem needs by being associated with this partner, right? So we can have sort of a um, like uh, um, high school, elementary school even example. Like if you have the most popular boy or girl in a grade, and you feel that if I am dating this person, I somehow am also elevating or improving my position or standing among my peers. So that is confusing what you need with what you want, right? Uh, so that is another example. The third example that I want to use, and I want you to be not just listening to me, I want you to be also thinking about this yourself. Like if I'm asking, do human beings need pleasurable stimulation? The simple answer is yes. Actually, it even has a neurological base. Like when we experience something pleasurable, there is an increased concentration of dopamine in our brain, and associated with that is serotonin. That has a lot to do with our mood, our sleep patterns, and there are also some recent research regarding how dopamine and serotonin can contribute to your long-term brain health. They're also protective against the development of dementia in old age. So we all need pleasurable stimulation. Our brain needs pleasurable stimulation, but your idea of pleasure and other people's idea of pleasure can be very different. So I have listed quite a few here, right? So what I need is pleasurable stimulation, but what I want, right, would be anything. Can be sex, drinking, psychotropic drugs, or bird watching, or reading, right, or hunting, or parachuting, or for some people it can be playing video games. You know, is an endless list. So how do we translate what we need into what we want? There is a heavy social process, right, in that. And what we believe to be our personal preference very often are not that personal. They're actually, conditioned by social forces. So I just want to ask you at this point, do you remember what are those social forces that shape your translation of your needs into wants and making you believe that that is your personal preference and like my style, my aesthetic preference, my political preference, whatever, right? Remember what those are? Okay. One, you have the social influences like culture, social scripts, norms, conventions, peer pressure, and all that, right? You remember that, right? What is the second major force? Yes, that is like the market, commercial forces, right? People who are trying to make a profit, if they can affect or influence how you translate your needs into like wants, and then believing that this is like my personality and my personal preference, right? And then the third one, yes, that is the political forces, right? So politicians or people with like vested political interests would try to convince you that you should want certain things, right? And because that is addressing your needs, but like very often they want you to want things that do not really address your needs, but theirs, right? So if you're okay with that, right? What I'm hoping is that like if you have gone through this thinking process and you've clarified this concept, you will be able to then design and lead a life in which you're more aware of what your real needs are, and you're using your time, energy, and resources to address the, your genuine needs, right? Without being hijacked or shaped or influenced or manipulated by external forces that would sort of like distract you from what you really need, right? Into pursuing things that are not necessarily uh, addressing your needs, but like benefiting the people who are trying to manipulate you one way or the other. Or you will be like investing in an unthinking manner into pursuing goals in your life that don't really address your personal needs. So I hope you have like enjoyed this particular session and found it to be helpful. And as I have like repeatedly mentioned in this program, like we always welcome your comments and feedback and questions if you have any, and hopefully we can keep this conversation going.